One thing I wanted to ask you about while we had you here, and I think this is a good segue, is just about, I guess, your experience with the culture. First at Phantom, under the Rennicks, and then at Vanguard, and I know you're more of like a front ensemble oriented person, and have lived in the battery world, and I was a snare drummer, so I'm like really interested to just hear kind of your impressions. There's not a really right answer, but what makes those percussion ensembles what they are? What are you guys doing differently that you believe is setting you apart? Because I think it's something. I think you can look at history and you look at what's been going on. It's like that's a special thing going on in terms of culture. So as someone who's been in it, both as a student and now a staff member, I'm really interested just to hear like how you feel that has all moved and evolved.
Yeah, I'd say the biggest thing that I think is different about Vanguard and our approach to rehearsing, and when I say Vanguard, really I'm thinking about Phantom too, because the approach and the way that we rehearse and the way that we prepare has pretty much been the same. The challenges are definitely different and definitely harder now. But when I think back to like rehearsals when I was in 2008 Phantom, it's very similar to what's going on in 2020 Santa Clara Vanguard. So, but I would say the biggest thing is that we rehearse a lot in a percussion ensemble setting. Sometimes on the field, on the move, but a lot of times just arced up, playing with each other, the pit and the battery. And I don't think that he likes the specialization of it all over the last few years. His approach has always been to treat it all as one big ensemble. It's one percussion ensemble, and this is the snare voice, and this is the marimba voice, and this is the quad voice, and we rehearse a lot like that. So I think that's a big takeaway for what we do. And as a staff member, as a part of that process, you really have, as we were talking about earlier, you have to be open-minded. I mean, I've been working with the same folks more or less at Vanguard for almost 10 years. Some of these are like my brothers and my sisters. I've known them half my life, and so there's just no ego with anyone on the staff, including Paul, including KJ Stafford, the assistant caption head. Everyone is just there to get to the end goal, and so there'll be times on the road when it's just me and Aaron Fisher and Akira Robles and just the three of us. No, like we don't have multiple texts per section or anything like that, and so we have to be able to collaborate, and I think that we all just kind of know what the goal is. Even though I'm the front ensemble guy, I know what the battery should sound like. I know how their parts fit with the front ensemble, and so I think we're all able to just keep it running real smooth that way. We all know what's going on in every group. We do subs, but it's rare. It's like not an everyday thing for sure. It's probably like a couple times a week maybe. So it's a different approach for sure. And this is all to say like it works for us, right? We certainly have a talent level that comes to the group, and we have I would say 99% of our crew is music majors and percussionists in college, and so it's what they do. They practice all day. They prepare for concerts, they prepare for performances, they perform a lot, and so they're ready when they get to Vanguard. They've done it all. They're just ready to perform at a consistent level, and so I think and another thing to add would be just after. And I think we just won our 4th drum trophy in a row. The approach is never different. It's never been different. Even when we were like 5th place in drums, it's not any different than the years that we're 1st place in drums. And so just seeing how, Paul Rennick has an analogy that everything kind of moves in sine waves, and he uses this every year when he's teaching, and I use it now as a teacher. I tell my students this, is that your job is to keep the sine wave barely moving and as high as you can. You don't want it to dip a lot from performance to performance. You just want it to keep improving and just barely a dip between performances. And that acknowledges that sometimes your second performance isn't as good as your first performance, and it dipped a little bit, but never enough to cause any drama or anything. It's always just smooth sailing at Vanguard. Everything's easy, and everybody gets along, and it's just we never want for anything, I guess.
And I think something that's super interesting, by the way, and that's just like I'm just super intrigued by the different approaches. And something I've always heard about the Rennicks is that they just really are interested in giving the students a very positive experience. I heard Paul doesn't really swear
No.
I know he's very competitive.
He's really upset when the members swear. I mean, they are family people. They have 3 kids, and their kids are constantly around the group, and so are they. And so
that becomes part of sort of the identity, the character of the group is like, let's be good people and let's come together.
Totally.
And this is collaborative, and if you're going to play clean, you have to get along.
Yeah.
And it's so hard. And being a snare drummer, there's such a personality in the snare world and a very specific type. And yet that's the instrument that sounds bad so easily.
Right.
And it's
when 2 players disagree,
it's so bad. Yeah. And it's like, if we could just put that aside, we'd realize that we're fighting to play clean together. And totally. When I started thinking about that,
that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. And when you're at an audition, you're auditioning for a drum corps and you're auditioning against someone, but what are we evaluating as instructors? How you play clean together. So Totally. It's this really counterintuitive experience where it's you kind of want this other person to fail, but you need to play clean with them. And that's such a weird situation to be in. And what I take away listening to you talk about how you guys do it is it's just all about the group. It's all about the full voice. It's not about this section or this or whatever. It's let's put that aside and make it about us sounding good together, because there's no marimba award. There's no snare line award.
Totally.
Right? And it's the average of your efforts is what's going to get you there. Is that
For sure.
when you come together, that it's the best on average and that you have those strengths across the board. And we all could just we just need to remember that.
Yeah, for sure.
We're so we're internally competitive at times with drum corps.
I like what you said when you said it's about the group, because that is that's what Paul and Sandy refer to Vanguard as. Oh, the group. Oh, he's going to play in the group, or this guy's going to audition for the group, and it's always about the team, and it's always about the people in it. It's never about Vanguard, or I say that it is about Vanguard. It is Vanguard, and certainly we're part of that legacy now, but it's never about anything other than the people that are doing it. And I think that approach is it just, it's been inspiring to me as a teacher, as a designer, and it's why I've been working there for 10 years. It's I don't get tired of that. I never get tired of listening to Paul talk to the group every morning. Every morning we have a meeting with the pit and the battery and everyone, and we all just talk about the goals of the day. How was the show last night? What can we do better? And it's always just, we're all involved and we're all aware of the goal.
Sounds very transparent. It sounds like the communication is pretty frequent, and I've heard that as well, that there's a lot of meetings, and that and having the pit and the battery meet together, it's so crucial, and that they feel like it's about them together. It's an ensemble. The goals are the same. We're good. We're trying to achieve something all together, and there's no surprise that when you treat the group as a group and not as subsections,
right,
that you play together and you play in a blended sound,
Totally.
and that you play ensemble together. It's because there's a trust there, and now we're beyond the information and the rehearsing is I just trust everybody.
Yeah. And you rise to the occasion a little bit. There's definitely years where we'll have a section that's weaker than some of the other sections, but you never notice it because they pull each other up. I can think of years where we've had outstanding marimba sections, oh my God. And then, maybe a couple of newer people on the snare line, but that never is ever problematic for us. It's always just they see the marimbas and the snares can take something away from it. Oh, those guys are really good. I think I can take a little bit of that into my playing, and it self-serves itself. And even when Paul's not on the road, it runs like he is on the road. And right. And we've all been working there for so long, we know how every day is supposed to go. It seems we're in Atlanta. This is what should be happening at this part of the year. So,
to me, if I could sum up what I'm hearing is it's just this belief in the culture. It's buying in. It's being a member of a group. It's serving the group. It's not about one person or one section or even 1 year. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's about we owe it to each other and to this kind of legendary thread throughout DCI percussion history. Certainly, we owe it to everyone. You know what I mean? And I think that is super special and impressive, and I am stunned by what that group is able to do every year and what sounds like in a way that's fun. So I think we all have a lot to learn from that kind of process. Like, the excellence is not coming from a dark, negative, ass-beating place. It comes from a belief in the program. So super, super eye-opening to hear that. And it sounds simple.
Yeah, and it truly is simple. Like, I never have to think too much about it when I'm there. It's just, we're here. We know what the goals are. Let's do it.
Right.
Yeah, I think that kind of ass-kicking culture that it certainly did used to exist, and maybe it still does in some respects. But I think of all the changes that have happened in DCI, for sure, that's the most positive one. And I think we're not looking back on that end. I think the teachers that teach like that are slowly finding themselves not in the conversation, and we're getting a whole new generation of teachers that have marched like when you and I marched.
Right.
That we got to experience it maybe a little bit of the old way and the new way, and to me there's no turning back, and SCV has embraced that so much in the member experience, and I think that just it all ties in together. It just makes it an easy. You're right, it's easy. It's really I don't want to sound cocky like it's easy to win drums all the time, but it's a battle. Like, we're trying to compete with Crown and Blue Devils, and those groups are impressive. So it's just easy to do our thing every day. They set it up and for success, I guess.
Well, mad respect, man. Mad respect.
You too, man.
I thank you for coming in
Appreciate
here
it.
and just talking about these nuances, because it's very eye and mind opening to hear you talk about it. And
Totally.
every time I talk to Matt Penland, it's just like I'm thrilled to like learn what you guys do.
For sure.
So
yeah, absolutely.
appreciate you coming in, dude.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to episode 3. I thank Tyler here for coming in and spending his time with us.